which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2, we will call to order the March 16th, 2023 Village Board meeting. Roll call. Number 3 is all board members are present except for Shauna, who is excused, and Peter is on the phone. All department heads are present and the village attorney. Number 4, agenda changes. Are there any? Okay, then we'll go to 5, consent agenda. A, February 16th, 2023 regular board meeting minutes. B, March 2nd, 2023 regular board meeting minutes. There are no licenses or permits. And D is presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second?
Roll call. Peter?
Aye.
Jim? Aye.
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 Motion carried. 6, public hearing. We will open the public hearing on A, Cedar Street special assessments.
Notices were sent out, and I believe we posted in the paper as well. The reason we're having a second public hearing was because of the timing between the preliminary assessment and the final assessment, so.
Okay. Since there is no one here to attend the public meeting, we will now close the public meeting. 7, pre-registered citizens to be heard. Are there any?
No.
Okay. We'll go to 8, committee reports. A, Public Safety Committee.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I'm completely unprepared. We met, we discussed the parking, the process. The process is now going to be open for the full board. What else did we talk about? Oh, the cameras. The gentleman from the camera company was here. We asked him a number of in-depth questions about capabilities of the camera system. And I think we're all happy with the quote, and the recommendation was to go forward with the what is that, CSQ? Is it CSQ? Okay, it's the CSQ quote. I'm sorry, I'm doing this off recollection. I've been doing my taxes all day.
SRO.
Oh yeah, we had a presentation from the SRO officer about the processes and the state of the school security and he presented a PowerPoint presentation. Is there anything I missed? Okay, sorry, I've been doing taxes, my brain's fried.
Okay, then we will move on to 9, unfinished business from previous meetings, and there is none. 10, new business. A, discussion and possible action on Cedar Street final special assessment.
So the final special assessment, the final engineering report is in your packet, and the last page kind of goes through the assessments. It was dramatically lower than what initially was presented. So I haven't heard anything from anyone of the residents on if they were upset about it at all or happy. So
then are we here to decide,
I mean, you could still decide on the number of years. The other thing to kind of discuss potentially too would be is if we want to take out, go through the bank loan for it. The interest rate right now for the residents would be 5.75%. And we have it right now as a 4-year installment.
So would they go longer?
So I would probably, if we took out a loan, I'd probably still take out a 4-year regardless.
Okay.
If you could go longer, up to 10 years for the installments. But the question is if you even want to go out for the loan. There's about $71,000 that we'd be going out for. We could potentially pay that and have the residents pay us, and reduce the percentage potentially down to the same percentage that Wildwind had to pay, which was I think 5% total. Then we would be getting that interest.
I think we should keep it consistent, at least for the year for payback. That should stay the same as Wildwood. I think we should stay with that.
What did we go with for Wildwood?
Their assessments were a lot lower than what these people are paying.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Some of these people are paying as much as
Over
10.
10,000, 9,000, 7,000, where Wildwind was what, 2,700 or something only? So that's why we were thinking of extending their payback.
If we do 10 years, then we should make that the same across the board though for every,
I mean, special assessment is intended to be a flexible mechanism, and if you're looking at the final assessed amount and going, gosh, this is a much bigger chunk for these people versus for those people, I don't think that there's anything wrong with, I think it's expected that you might offer different payment terms.
Yeah, I mean, it's at a 5% interest rate. It's not gonna be great to hold it for the 10 years if that's what you end up doing.
It doesn't cost the village anything to do it longer, correct?
Well, it's longer that you're holding on to that debt potentially,
Yeah,
waiting to recoup your costs for the project.
okay.
And, I mean, from an accounting standpoint, you just have to be sure that we're keeping track. I don't know if there have been issues here with that, but we have other clients. I have one right now. We just discovered that we had a 23-year pending assessment. There had been a subdivision of the land that somehow went through without anyone realizing, and now it's $170,000 that these people owe. So, I mean, from an accounting standpoint, you have to be sure that you're not overburdening your staff too.
Yeah.
So we went 3 years with the Wildlands, right? 3 or 4?
I think 5.
Did we go 5? No, we didn't go 5. No, what, was their assessment 5,000?
I'm looking at a final resolution, a draft that I did, 5 annual installments at 5% for Wildland. And for Cedar in the preliminary, you had 4 annual installments at 6%. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's 4 at 5 and 5.75. We didn't know what the interest rate would be, so.
What was Wildwood's final assessment? I mean, it was split evenly, so what was their?
I think it was closer to 2,600.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of them were the same.
so, yeah, well, yeah, that's a,
And we're
I mean, so we went down to
majority-
like $500 a year?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the majority of these are 4,000 to 5,000 and up,
Yeah,
you know, and
And the average
They're
assessed
high.
house over there is a lot less than what the average assessed house is over in Wildwood as well, so.
So if we pay the 71,000, where does that come from? If we don't take all the
We
loan?
already paid it technically.
Okay,
So the loan would just be basically reimbursing us for what we've already expensed.
okay.
And the residents then would be paying back the loan, is how it would work.
Okay, that money wasn't marked for some,
I mean,
it had to come out of somewhere.
yeah, I mean, it was reserved,
Okay,
is basically how it works. I think anytime you're dealing with less than 100,000, it's kind of in that in-between phase where you
Okay.
might think about potentially not doing a loan, and depending on how many people are gonna pay upfront. Yeah.
I guess I like to just give them the chance to pay it a little longer, especially when you look at some of these at 7, 9, 10,000. Even splitting that at 10,000 over 5 years, it's still 2,000 a year, and that can hurt. for
that's
some
in
people.
addition to your taxes.
Plus
Yeah.
their, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, Yeah, that's a big chunk of change for people.
And it might make it hurt, like if they're looking to sell their home too, you know, that's, still has to be paid, and that might deter somebody from buying a home.
Typically, it's paid off when the home sells.
Exactly, but,
It's not a
yeah.
crazy.
Can I add some comment?
Sure,
In
go
the
ahead.
past, we've talked about tiering this, anything over 5,000, could we give them longer term? Anything under that, as Julie has just pointed out, maybe a shorter term.
Just a matter of policy moving forward.
Or are we able to do that, tiering this? Like
I
if,
wouldn't do that.
no,
I mean, you could have a subdivision with multi-million-dollar homes, and they have a $5,000 assessment, and then you could have a part of your town where property values aren't anywhere near that, and you have a $5,000 assessment. I really think it should be on a case-by-case basis.
yes.
Mhm.
So, the reason I was asking about where it's coming from, so eventually are we gonna have to borrow money to cover some other project that would have come out of the reserve? I mean, so eventually we're gonna have to, the village will have to pay the interest on it, we just won't pay all of the interest on it.
Potentially, but it's such a low amount that most likely we wouldn't get that low ever, where we're at 0. I mean, we have about 750 grand that's supposed to be our fund balance amount. So, basically what we would do is take it out of the reserve. Potentially, yes, it could be used for something else. It always can.
Yeah.
Right now, the only thing that's really on the horizon is Main Street, which we have really no preliminary numbers for at all. And with all the different potential financing sources for Main Street, that might not be a problem on the village side compared to the water sewer side, but I mean, at least if we're still charging them the interest, that's something the village would be able to recoup.
Yeah.
So it would be very little difference between the amount of interest that we retain off the residents that are taking out the loan and the interest we would make having it in the bank.
Yeah.
So, and actually, depending on the bank it's in, it might create more interest off of it.
So I'm just trying to reconcile in my mind whether or not it's a good idea to set a precedence that we will borrow money to residents for less than the current rate that it would cost us to borrow it if we end up having to turn around and borrow it again. So, I mean, it seems to me that, and I mean, we don't know if, you don't know if the interest rates are gonna go up or down. But it seems to me that every other time that we've done this, we have charged the current interest rate to everybody else that has taken and it's only 0.25%. You don't get me wrong. I don't know if it's, in my mind, I don't know if it's a good idea to start saying, well, we'll borrow you the money for less than what we could get it for at the bank. Because that's what the money is worth right now. So, and every other one we've always done, as long as I've been here, has been, you can run it out, and here's the current interest rate. Here's what it would be. It's not the 0.25%. The 0.25% is nothing. But I don't know if it's a good idea to start.
We could do 5 1/4.
Yeah, we do 5 1/4, and it's also assumed interest rates will go up versus down. You know, if we say 5 1/4 and interest rates go down to 3, then that's a surplus for the village, correct?
Potentially.
I think you really need to look at where the rates are when you're actually doing the assessment. I mean, it's not intended to be a money-making endeavor, so we don't want to cushion it.
Mm-mm.
And you can always offer more favorable terms, but I mean, I think those are all really good considerations, but I certainly, at this point where we are, it's payment in 4 installments at 5.75 or more favorable terms to the individuals who are being assessed.
Well, 5.25 is the rate of the loan. plus our 0.5% for administration fee, is basically.
Well, and you
how
can
we-
do a 20% cushion in costs overall for administrative and, yeah.
So I guess my suggestion would be that we extend it out. I agree with Peter, and I think everybody else, that we extend it out because of the amounts that we're talking about. Typically, we've been, I thought we were doing like $1,000 a year split down. But, I mean, do we want to go to 10 years, or do we want to take those top two out? I don't know, I don't remember the properties that those were on. I thought those were, aren't those multi-use properties though? So that's actually gonna be split?
No, the one on the corner,
Oh, that's the
Nope.
corner one?
there's
Okay.
a single person with,
Okay.
a $10,000 assessment.
So then I get, my suggestion would be to do whatever the current interest rate is at a 10-year payback. Since the highest one is $10,000.
If I can add some comment, I remember the one on the corner was, had some unique decision or unique circumstances that prevented them from paying a lot of money. So I would agree with Jim that maybe that $10,000 might be extended out a little bit longer.
That's,
There's one for 9 also.
we were just advised not to do that, that you do everyone or no one.
We can't separate out
Right.
different properties, Peter. I don't know if you caught that.
Well, no, I didn't, but who calls the shots on this? Is this a state statute or is this just local government?
I think that maybe something that I said was misunderstood. I think that you could certainly say, okay, somebody fits into this range, so we're gonna give this number of years versus this range, so they get a little bit more time. I think that you could set it up that way. We have not set this up that way.
Okay,
And
all
so we
right.
couldn't approve it, I don't think, that way tonight, because it is such a substantial change from what was proposed and what we have provided notice of.
Okay, so we could set the guidance here. We don't have to conform to any state statute of any sort.
As far as amount of time to repay, no. Not that I'm aware.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So what would our next step be? So you're saying that we wouldn't be able to do that tonight, but it would be next?
If we were to substantially deviate from the terms that have been proposed here, that would need to be considered at a later meeting. And by statute, you would have to provide notice and an opportunity for another public hearing before you could make that decision.
Or we could make a decision to say 10 years. Is that, so
For
if we just say
all.
all,
Yeah.
if we just
Yeah.
said 10 years for all,
Yeah.
we could move forward. I mean, it just seems like the Cedar Street project
Yeah,
has
it's been going
been
on for a long
a
time.
very long time.
I emailed Nathan and I said, I don't remember where we started with this.
No, and I think that there's gonna be people out there that hate us off well before that 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a select few that are gonna
Yeah, right.
need that time.
Yeah, I think those that, if we put it outside the bounds of someone's ability to pay, like say if we look at the worst case is the $10,000 one, and say they are unable to come up with $1,000 additional, I think that puts those homeowners in a position to find another financing, like, to take a second mortgage, and then they have a much smaller payment, they have a much longer time to pay it out, much smaller payment, but that we can't adjust everybody to 20 years. I mean, that would be,
No.
that would seem a little.
Well, and that's sort of what I'm saying too, Jim. I want to be careful that, I don't think that you're setting a precedent. This
Yeah.
is a unique assessment,
Yeah.
and it's its own project, and what you do here has no bearing on what you might do for another
No,
assessment.
I meant everybody in this
No, I know,
assessment to 20
I know.
years.
But just
Because some
taking
of them
that
don't.
sort of one step forward.
Yeah, some of them don't warrant that.
Right.
So I think,
If I'm sitting in a $5 million house, it
Yes.
probably does not take me 10 years to repay a $5,000
Yeah.
assessment.
I
Sure.
understand. So, like I said, my suggestion would be to set a 10-year at the current interest rate. And if if the village doesn't want to secure the loan, we can, I think that's a separate issue. We could, if we want to be the lender in this case, I think that's completely separate.
Is that your motion?
What's that?
Is that your motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion. I'll make a motion that we set the terms of repayment for the special assessment for Cedar Mill and Pine Street at a 10-year payback at the current bank interest rate.
I would add to that if you can, or upon sale of the property.
Oh,
That
sorry,
language
or
will-
upon sale of the property.
I will second it.
Roll call, Peter?
At what rate?
The current bank rate, according to Nathan, is 5.25%.
Okay,
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on roofing payment for Otto Miller Park.
So there's an invoice in your packet. This is the first invoice we've got from Security Lukey for re-roofing some of our buildings due to the hail damage from last year. This invoice came in at exactly what they had quoted us for. So this one's done, and I guess staff is recommending approval of payment.
Is the job done, or is this the?
They're gonna be starting on this building
Okay,
next
so they
week.
finished that building. Okay.
The one at Otto Miller is finished.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the Security Loop Key payment in the amount of $25,208.36 as the first payment of their contract.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Peter? Peter, are you there?
Peter?
We lost Peter.
He's still excited.
I'm gonna try that.
Peter?
Well, is that what happened?
this is Peter, I'm not available to take your call right now, but please.
Okay, we will have to proceed without him. So, Jim?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. C, discussion and possible action on purchase of 2 additional express vote machines.
So this is, those are the 2 machines that the voter, it's a ballot marking device. That's where our backup was for the November election. It strictly marks the ballot. These ballots are cheaper from the county. We already have 2 machines. We would like to get 2 more. And I believe it's in the CIP, so we were planning on getting some more. It's also ADA compliant. It's not connected to the internet at all. That's all we use for in-person voting because nobody can make a mistake on it. If you overvote, it'll tell you that right away. So that ballot wouldn't have to be remade on election night because it's a good ballot. People seem to really like it. And the last couple elections, it's about half and half with the express vote ballots and the printed ballot.
And I think more would vote on them if they didn't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So,
So the purchase amount is it the 79 plus the 410, or is it?
yes,
Is there only one supplier for these?
yes. And it all has to be approved by the elections commission. So yes,
So a total of 8,310.
yes,
Okay.
for the 2 machines,
For the total of 2.
yeah.
All right, I will make a motion to purchase 2 additional express vote machines in the amount of $8,310.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, D, discussion on potential grant writer agreement.
I put in the packet a sample of an agreement that the city of Wapaka uses with their school district and their chamber. Basically, this is something a lot of municipalities are starting to do, is intergovernmental agreements in order to fund grant writers to get as much money for the municipality and the school districts as they can. So far, it's been very successful in Wapaka. They've, I think, earned, an article that was submitted, it was around 2.1 million, or 2.3 million, the city of Wapaka did. A large amount of it is probably school district funds for the school district as a grant. I guess the question that I'm asking is basically if this is something that you guys might be interested in. I wanted to know before approaching the school district if it's something that we'd potentially be interested in taking on with them.
I like the idea of collaborating, especially because I know that our population kind of takes us out of some of those grants because of income levels and that sort of thing. But when you look at the school population, that adds more of a collaborative population, which I think makes us more eligible for certain grants. I just think that the collaboration is a huge plus.
How does it work?
Jane, Peter would
Well,
like you
so
to call.
how theirs works is that they fund, they basically split the cost of either you can have an employee or a company. And the idea is that person understands everything with the school district, the municipality, so then when they are looking for grants, they find grants that fit this area and then apply for them. That's basically how it's done in Wapaka right now. I guess at this point there wouldn't be anything really that would be laid out because it's just, it would be something I would talk with, get
Peter, I'm not available to take your call
Todd
right
Tim
now, but
involved with and see what his thoughts are on it before bringing something back in the future with an agreement potentially.
So this is something that we create a fund, a shared fund between the
So
municipality and the school, and then
you could do it that way. It
Or-
would probably be something the school would just hire on and then we would pay them a portion each year.
okay.
Theirs is run through their chamber, so it basically is a chamber, holds all the funds, so the school district and the school and the municipality pay the chamber, and the chamber has this grant writer.
This to me just seems like more of an
Jane,
agreement
try
versus a handshake. You know, like, yep, we're gonna apply for this, you know, and then you're gonna hold on to those funds for us later. This just makes it more, exactly how is this gonna be done?
Okay. Well, I'm just curious as to some of the specifics, like if you're, so if the school is applying for grants for the school, we're paying for the grant writer to do that? Or,
You would fund the grant writer or the company that we hire on,
okay,
and we'd split it. Basically, how theirs is it's divided in thirds. So the school district pays a third, the municipality and the chamber each pay a third of this person's salary or their cost. And then that person's full-time job is applying for grants for the village, for the entities of the village, or the city, and then the school district as well.
okay.
School districts tend to have a lot more grants available to them,
Mhm.
so that's why they have gotten a lot more of it in Wapaka. I think, you know, even any time that we get a grant for the school district, it helps us too, because anytime we can improve the school district, it helps bring in people here. Because I mean, the school district's probably one of our #1 driving economic development things in this area, because that's what I hear from a ton of people, because we have such a great school district here.
Mhm.
So that is a huge benefit for us as well, even though we might not obtain the returns like the school district might get on their investment. So,
So give us a scenario, so like Alonzo Park. we're wanting to do some pretty big stuff at Alonzo Park. And some of those things could involve the school districts, like, I know that it's village property, all that kind of stuff. But if we're gonna apply for a grant, but we work with the school district of creating an area that the school district, which
I
is,
think that would be something the grant writer would do, but
Yeah.
I think for the most part, it's just hiring, it's a shared cost of a grant writer, so that no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be a combination school and village thing. It could just be a complete, application for the village, or for the fire department, or for Bold, or for
okay,
the school district, and not really affect the other entities, but it's not a grant writer who's only working on things that are a mix between them. It's,
that's what I
Base-
needed to understand.
yeah,
Okay.
it's basically hiring someone on that can write them for this area as much as possible.
We have any idea what kind of cost we're talking about?
No, not until you start looking, I mean, if you're looking at hiring, you're probably looking around 80 to 90, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Hiring on a company might be a little less than that. I don't know. That would be something we'd bring back when we have an idea of what our options are.
We've
I guess-
hired, we've hired before, didn't we hire a company to write a grant for us for Grandview?
I think East Central Regional Planning did that.
But I'm trying to think, we hired another, I'm trying to think what the cost was, it was like $5,000.
Yeah, the fire
Yeah.
department hired somebody to
Yeah.
write a
Yeah.
grant.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about that, I mean, so like, so this could possibly benefit fire department or EMS or anything like that, because it would be a
Potentially, yeah.
potential,
It's,
but it's an agreement.
right, and you wouldn't have to, I mean, this one's only a year agreement. How this started is they got a donation from a wealthy resident for this, and then their idea was to continue it on after the first year, because they
Okay.
saw such great results. It is something I know other municipalities around here are looking at. I know New London was talking, was getting the information from them too, from the administrator in Wapaka. So it's looking like it's probably gonna start being utilized a lot more,
Okay.
because, yeah, hiring people to write grants for us is very expensive, and
So are you looking for a motion or just a head
No.
nod?
I
Go
just
ahead
need
and
to know
approach
if this is something you
Todd.
guys would be interested in, so I can at least start the process and see if it's something the school district may be interested in. So,
Does the school employ somebody to write grants now?
I don't know, and I
Yeah.
didn't, that's the background. I didn't want to start doing that background unless it was something that was
Mhm.
interesting to you guys for me to go forward with.
I know a lot of teaching staff does their own grant writing, or
Mhm.
they do their own funding sources, which is not easy for them to
Takes
take
a
on.
lot of time.
Takes a lot of time. I can ask a teacher right here.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and investigate it,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
So there's your head nod.
Okay, it's a go. All right, we'll go to E, discussion on citizen complaint process.
This is just for getting your guys' opinion on what, how we want to handle complaint processes. It was brought up by a resident that without a that they didn't like the fact that we accepted anonymous complaints. Is that something we want to continue to do or not? It's kind of up to you guys.
I guess my question is for the chief. People are allowed to do something anonymously, correct? So if somebody were to call the police department and they'd say, I want to make an anonymous complaint, what's that process? I mean, there's not always a report written for that, right?
Yeah, well, it depends upon what kind of complaint that we're dealing with. If we're dealing with a fireworks complaint, or loud music, or a barking dog, those types of things, the officers would actually, we can take an anonymous complaint of that. I mean, the only thing that we can do is we can go out, we can observe if the person wants to remain anonymous, but yet wants a citation issued. Unfortunately, if we don't observe it, we can't issue a citation. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that in the law enforcement field that if we have an anonymous complaint, we really can't act on it. I mean, we can act on it, but we can't act the way that the person wants us to act on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Wait, I think this was more along the, like the stop sign at, the what was it, Warner Street? Is it Warner? Where we had
Oh, the three-way stop.
the
sign
three-way
up there.
stop.
Oaken.
You know, where there's, and the removal of the parking on the bridge, from just citizen complaints to any of us board members or the police or any staff, that the person didn't formally submit a complaint. And the part of the issue that got brought up, and it was brought up with public safety, was that, you know, the residents that disagreed with it didn't like the policy that, you know, that we couldn't or can't always point to specific individuals who complained about something, which triggers the start of us looking at and then potentially making changes. And some of the discussion went along the ways of that sometimes there doesn't even have to be complaints. You know, I mean, when it comes to safety, sometimes we will just see things and make changes. I mean, it's part of a growing community. But there are a number of social situations where all of us get approached and the people are comfortable expressing their grievances with this that happens in the village, or this that they don't like, or something like that. And that's not part of a formal complaint process, and you can't necessarily always bring it up. One of the examples I brought up was, you know, I don't go to Nathan every week and tell him, hey, I had 3 more people tell me that they really don't like the high water bills, right? I mean, we all know from everyone telling us that that they don't like paying as much for water and sewer as what we have to pay, but we don't have an entire list of formal complaints whenever we sit down and start talking about, well, what actions can we take, you know, to try to limit increases or things like that. So we take action sometimes where formal complaint process really didn't even apply. And a lot of times we do stuff when there's a lot of informal or undocumented complaints or comments from citizens. And that was the purpose of the conversation, was that the resident didn't really like that process, that there was no documentation when we go to take action.
I guess I wanted to shed a little more, maybe a different light on that. I don't know that people are against the anonymous complaints, because like you said, you know, we get a call, we get a text message, whatever, and they might not want to identify themselves with whether it's a police complaint or whatever. But I think if you want to talk about the parking, being transparent about, well, what were the safety concerns? Not necessarily who made the complaints, but what were they? Are there any documented accidents, documented incidents, whatever? If there are any, you know, what is the procedure? And I think whenever we have complaints, it's crucial that we listen and that, not call Nathan about water bills. I agree with you about that, or Aaron or anybody, but follow through with staff who are the experts, you know, on that, whether it be about elections or about parking or whatever. So I think I took it that it was more not I want to know who's complaining. I want to know how you decide to go ahead with stuff. What are your steps to making changes?
And
That's how
I think we did cover that by bringing it to, did we start out at the board meeting, then we went to a public safety meeting, then we went to another board meeting to discuss it. So I do feel that we openly discussed different situations, and I think that is what we do. That's why
we redid it.
We have our committee meetings.
We did that was the process in the first place. And then we went back afterwards and had another, then it came back to the full board after that, and then went back to public safety again, and now we're back talking about it
And
again.
I think
So
that was another thing we talked about at public safety, was having public hearings when it's more wide-reaching or wide,
Or it
a
affects
bigger
somebody's
scope.
business,
Yes.
you know, like,
or the whole downtown, or
if I wasn't on the board, would I even know any of this is going on? And then they're gonna change parking in front of my business, or parking in front of my house, or change, you're gonna make my street a one-way street or something. If I'm not watching those agendas, I don't have any idea that it's happening. And I think that, in my opinion, if we could do better, we could make sure that people that are affected, that are in that hub or that nucleus of where that situation is being changed, like one way or not, and that's extreme, but like no parking. Could we have done like a public hearing? Could we have done some sort of notice?
And that's what we did
Well,
talk about
yeah,
at
we-
the
yeah.
committee meeting, that maybe we didn't.
Well,
Just
that
state at the
that did come up.
Right,
The
and
idea
we
of doing a
talked
public
about that.
hearing came up. I mean, I think, I don't have a problem with doing a public hearing. I have no problem with
Or
it.
even a notice?
Do
Yeah.
I think that there's a significant change that would occur? I mean, we had a public hearing tonight.
No.
I mean, and this is $10,000 and $9,000 and there was not a single person here.
But they had the option to come if
They
they wanted
did.
to. And
They
we know,
did.
and we know that.
Right,
Whereas-
Yeah.
But I think, Jim, we didn't,
Yeah,
you know, we had, I think, maybe I misinterpreted at our committee meeting. I thought we looked at it and said we could have done better, you know, just making it more notice, send notice, put it on Facebook, whatever. Just
Yeah.
looking at how do we do things.
yeah, I think that was the consensus. Well, that's why I say just a public hearing. I have no objections at all to doing a public hearing if we're gonna do something that's gonna affect an area. I mean, because but the problem that I see with that is that, the same process that's used to notify people of the actions of the board and the things we're going to discuss is the same process that's used for public hearings. I mean, the public hearing was posted, the only difference being, with like special assessments, we send out letters, right, to
Well,
people, so.
Nathan and I talked about it today, and we talked about maybe the direct impact could be notified by mail, but not sending a letter to the whole village.
Isn't a public hearing something you have to publish in the paper and it has to be
Yes.
out so many days and,
Jane just said
To me-
300 feet of that.
yeah. So to me, you would be better to say, we're gonna have a committee of the whole then, and we could discuss it, couldn't we?
have a
And
public
letters
hearing.
could
I mean, you
still
could-
be sent out,
You could,
But-
you could do a notice without necessarily having a public hearing. and
right?
people can come
You
in.
wouldn't have a per se public hearing,
Right.
but
it's
you would
just
have a
that
committee of the
it's
whole
easier
where you
to
would
talk
invite
about it
these
as an
people.
example for you guys. I mean, we can do a notice to anyone affected within 300 feet, anyone direct affected. I think it would depend on what issue we were talking about, I think, too. So I think it's something that we can learn from,
Yeah.
go forward and decide on, if there is an issue that pops up that might be controversial, we can decide then if we want to do a public hearing, we want to do just a notice to the residents affected, notice to everyone within 300 feet. There's different options.
Like a stop sign, we wouldn't notify everyone within 300 feet of that stop sign. You know what I mean? That, like the,
Yeah. And
But
one of the other things came up
parking-
was Main Street. If you do something on Main Street, it affects everybody, so you'd have to notify everybody in the village. which-
But I can tell you,
Yeah.
with my parents' business, had somebody come along and said, by the way, there's no parking in front of your business now, but my parents didn't know, I can say that that's not fair. And we're expecting people to look at agendas, but if they would have gotten a notice that says, this is affecting, you're within so many feet of this or whatever, that they could come talk about it. I think it needs to be a case by case, but I think we can do better at, especially if it affects somebody so significantly, like completely removing the parking in front of, their business or their
Yeah.
home or,
I agree, it has to be case by case.
Mm.
I think in the case that we're tiptoeing around, unless somebody wants to accuse Nathan of lying to the board, he went there in person to notify them. It's just that it got lost in the conversation.
I get it.
And even going in person, you would think that that would be one of the best ways to notify somebody.
Mhm.
But, communication is a flawed, I mean, communication is flawed no matter how you do it. If you send somebody a letter, they forget it. They didn't get it.
But
They
then we've
forgot
done
it.
our part.
But then we've done our part, and there was another
Well-
business owner that came to a public safety meeting that would have been within that 300 feet range. So that, other business owner would have been able to voice their opinion as well, you know, or known about it ahead of time. So we would have, if we wouldn't have gotten presents from one business, I'm sure we would have gotten it from the other. I think at 300 feet, you know, I mean, it's not that big. It's not that big of a radius, but it kind of affects, when you're talking those close buildings, it affected, and we did get another business owner that was here. So, okay. So it's not like a formal policy or anything, but I would just like to be, if we're gonna do anything that affects somebody, that we would just be able to share with citizens that we're gonna do better at this.
And that's kind of what we talked about at the committee meeting, that morphed for the complaint procedure, kind of morphed from that. I think we kind of got into that at the committee meeting after we were talking about a public hearing, so. I think there needs to be an avenue for people to complain anonymously without having to fill out a complaint, and I talked with Nathan today about it. You know, some things they just deal with, the staff does, which is, you know, we don't have to know everything. But if we're making far-reaching decisions based on complaints, we should have more background, I guess, you know, as we make those. And not really names, doesn't have to be names.
Well, we discussed that. I mean, there is a formal complaint process.
I realize that.
That you don't have to submit your name.
Right, and I wouldn't want to do away with that personally, because I think some people
Yeah.
would be
It's already in
fearful of
place.
complaining, or,
Yeah, you can, the formal process is already in place where you can do it anonymously, or you can identify yourself.
right, right.
There's the electronic version, and then I'm sure if somebody comes in person, that there's somebody to deal with that as well, but
And
okay.
I think that's why all our names are listed on the Village Voice. I think that's why our name is on the website with our pictures. I think that way if people want to approach us in the grocery store, they can, they know who we are, we're on the board. I feel, you know, we don't close out anyone. We listen to their complaint, whether it's verbal or written, and bring it forward. So that's why all our names are out there, so
And I
that
think
people
we-
can either call or approach us,
Mhm.
you know, so, yeah.
And bringing it to the staff first, because they're experts in so many areas, you know, is my opinion.
Well, usually if it's, I think if it was a public safety issue, we used to bring it to Carl then, if it was a complaint, and then he brought it to the board. If it's grass
Safety.
clippings or
Public
anything
safety
like that,
facilities,
then
public
it would go to Aaron, you
Public
know,
safety would
and
be the-
that kind of thing. So, yeah, we've always kind of done that in the past, that's how it was handled, so, you know, so it would then get, through him, brought to the board to discuss or bring up
Right.
in a, like, or to Chris, if one of her officers got a complaint, then we would, you know, she could bring it to the board and say, we need to discuss this at a public safety meeting, or, you know, anything like that. I think that's kind of how we've always done our complaints. So, you know, we've kind of always had that policy. And if it was something major, it went to Nathan or the administrator. So, yeah. I think we're all in agreement.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, then we would move to F, discussion on citizen committee participation.
For this, I just needed to see if you guys wanted to move forward on having this be an official thing, because we were testing it out before creating the ordinance, if this was something that we would want to continue to do. We currently have 2 members on our public facilities committee, and I have 2 other applications for ones, and then we do have 1 currently on our public works committee, which will be hopefully participating in our first public works committee this year. But there's 2 other ones that were submitted. One was for public safety and one was for public facilities. So if it is something we want to continue, or if we want to continue just testing it, we can keep it for now, and then I guess we also need to figure out, you know, what you want as a max number of citizens on those committees.
I think it would be nice if, you said you've got 2 new people, if you would, the next time we do have a meeting, ask them to come and see how they feel about it before we decide, okay, we're gonna start adding and, you know, see what those people think about it. And the current ones on public facility, ask them what their feelings are about continuing to come to any meetings, and then kind of come back to us and say,
The ones that have participated, enjoyed it, and they want to continue on with it.
yeah.
The-
I mean, after they see what goes on and that kind of thing, when they actually attend a meeting, it would be nice to then hear their input and say, well, I don't think it's necessary, or yeah, I want to keep coming, and so what's the official
Right.
way we handle it?
Well, you'd still have to potentially appoint them to the position as well.
And that's what we did, right?
Yeah.
With the public facility?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you looking at a specific date? Are you looking at, because generally after the spring election, there's the committee assignments and that sort of thing. Are you looking to have this sort of
I mean, it would be nicer to have it in place before the,
committee?
yeah. But I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be.
No?
I just didn't know, it's been a few months since we started, and there's only really been like 1 or 2 meetings
Yeah.
with the, just one actually, so. But, I mean, I guess I didn't know if you guys wanted to discuss the max amount of members, because, I mean, do you wanna have, you know, 3, 5, 2? I mean, that's up to you guys to figure out.
So, I mean, other than that, I think, I like the idea of having citizens become part of the members of the committee. But I think that one of the things that has to be addressed, or should be addressed, is that the process to put them on the committee, how long they're on the committee, and a process to remove them from the committee, if it needs be.
It'd be the same process as the committee assignments now.
Okay.
So basically, it's appointed by the president and confirmed by the trustees.
Okay. What's
So
the
they would do like a 2-year term.
Well, yeah, but ours are listed by election, and then,
Right, so theirs would be the same.
okay.
It'd be a 2-year term, they'd be appointed, and then if someone comes in, I mean,
Okay, so I guess I'm thinking like the worst case scenario, and I always go to this because this is how I think, is if you get someone on one of these committees that becomes unproductive and disruptive. I mean, I can't imagine that people want to be there, but there are personalities where that's where they will be. That's why I think you need to have a formalized process you already have a formalized process for placing them on a committee, but then you also have to have a formalized process for removing them because they're not an elected official. So you have to have, you know, what does it take?
official.
What's that?
It'd be an appointed
They'd be
position.
appointed, right, which means you have to have a process to remove them, otherwise you
Right,
have.
which would, I believe would be under the same statute as moving trustees. Potentially, I mean, we could do something more, but it's one vote, too. I mean,
And
it's
it's
no
only for
different than your
recommendation.
board.
Yes, but,
I mean, if someone's elected to the position and is problematic, I mean, it's one vote out of the 5 there that are board members. plus
I'm not so much concerned about the voting aspect of it, because it is only one vote, it doesn't affect it. But if someone volunteers to be on a committee and they are basically unproductive and a drain on the productivity of the committee itself. So so we'll say in a mild case, somebody wants to be on Public Works, right? And they don't understand anything about Public Works. They just wanted to participate, right? And it's good natured and they wanted to participate. And they wanted to be on, and so they signed up for Public Works. They don't know anything about Public Works and they have no desire to actually learn except for when they're at the meetings. So they bombard you with an hour and a half's worth of questions of details on every single thing about the smallest detail instead of actually getting anything done. or another scenario where you get someone who volunteers to be on a committee for their own purposes. Specifically say like public safety, somebody wanted to get on because they didn't, we'll say somebody wanted to get on because they weren't unhappy with something public safety did, and then decided to be disruptive to the meetings instead of become a productive, contribution, which is the intent of the program. So I think there needs to be a formalized process put in place for the term, it's formalized for how they get on, and then something to do with the term and something to do with removal as well. Because there is a formalized process for removing board members as well.
Right, so
But-
for committees, those are going to be created by ordinance. It sounds like you already have ordinances for some of your committees with these processes in place. But typically, a person is removed the same way that they would have been appointed. So if the village president has the authority to appoint, then we can assume, unless you've stated otherwise in your ordinance, that the village president would have the ability to remove. Or
Okay.
if it's approval by the board as a whole or whatever, it's gonna mirror that.
Okay.
Unless you have it written otherwise in your ordinance, which you could
So
easily
kind of
do.
going along with that, like a committee is an appointment, an elected official. There's people that run for
Yeah.
elected positions all the time that have their personal
Oh, yeah.
agendas and they're there
Yeah.
to disrupt.
Yep, and there's no change in that. That's
But that's
So-
a
That-
choice
that's
that
not
you
within our
make.
But that's,
purview.
but that's a
It's apples
difference.
and oranges.
That's
Yes.
elected
Yeah.
versus appointed. So
Yes.
you're talking about an appointed committee instead of it's not this big process of, well, we're gonna have to recall or we're gonna have to do all this.
yes.
This is appointed.
Yes.
This is completely different.
No, I'm just saying it should
For
be
you to
documented
removed
how it occurs.
would require court order or a recall, because
I'm
nobody in this
elected.
room has the authority to supersede what your
Yeah.
electors have decided.
But this is appointed.
Yeah, but that's
This
what I'm-
is apples and oranges.
That's what I'm saying, though, there is a documented process for removal of every position that we have.
Based on
so-
state statute.
Well, it's documented, though. I mean, so we are going to create a citizen position appointed, so we should have a documented process for removal as well.
So
I
are you
think that's
saying
very
we should
prudent.
have an ordinance?
To create a committee, you need to.
We already have it.
We have ordinances
an
for
ordinance.
committees. We have ordinances for
Right.
committees, yeah.
For elected
No,
committees,
no.
For appointed
But just
committees, you would.
for
need it.
appointed committees?
Because you're delegating some of your authority, presumably, to that committee. I mean, it might be quite limited, depending on the nature and the intent of that committee, but, so you are the master of, the board is the master of creating this group. And you have the authority and oversight for that group.
I'm sorry, I just see a
I think
number.
you're saying the same thing.
I just see a number of scenarios where, we have former disgruntled employees that want to get onto public works, or we say we have somebody who doesn't like the chief personally for some reason that wants to get on public safety, and becomes disruptive instead of productive.
Right. Well,
And I think the process
There are
needs to
certain
be.
committees that attract certain personalities
Mhm.
more than others.
Yeah.
And then the flip side is we could get a lot of benefit from it, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to look at it that way.
Oh, no,
I think
that's
we
what
can
I
deal
started
with it.
with. I like the idea.
Yeah,
I
'cause
love
I-
the idea, and if it works
I-
out perfectly, great, but I
Yeah.
think you need
And
to,
I think there's
have the
ways to
process involved.
handle that,
Laid out.
obviously, I mean, I knew nothing about public works when I was appointed to public
Yeah.
works, so I was one of those
Section 2,
asking a lot of questions.
It might not be updated
So,
in here.
This
yeah,
is just-
I get it, but
yeah, this
I
is
hate
just the
for
thing
us
I
to
don't think
dwell on that.
you don't step in the water without having a way to get back on shore,
Thank you.
right? I mean, if something doesn't work, then you should have something, formalized. But completely off topic, well, only partially off topic, a little tangent. My opinion is that we stay with the testing until that's my opinion.
So the ordinance
The
is
testing
section
process.
2-58 regarding committees.
Yep.
And it talks about committees and other special committees, 4 standing committees, finance. So it talks about this, it gives the different types of committees.
Yep.
Um,
And how they-
Appointments, subject to confirmation, all committee appointments shall be subject to confirmation by majority vote of the village board. So it just would be adding something to this ordinance
Right.
about the unappointing, correct? Or does it
Yeah.
even?
No,
Unelected.
You'd
The
also
removal.
have,
Yeah.
you'd have to add in there the citizen members. I mean,
Correct.
there's, what I'm wanting is more, if you wanna go forward with it, we would create an ordinance.
Okay.
And then bring it back at a different date for adoption.
Sure.
I just didn't know if there was a limited amount of people that you wanted on a committee.
Well, one of the things we talked about was, and I know not everybody maybe likes this idea, but reducing the number of board members on a committee and, 3 on the committee or whatever, and then have citizens. So instead of having heavy on the board end, have 2 more citizens. Like on public facilities, we have 2 now,
Yep.
right? So, I mean, do we have a committee of 5 then, or a committee of, what do we have now? Do you appoint 4 and
4.
then you attend? So could we have it appoint 3?
I would probably do 2 and
2.
then herself plus.
2 and then the president?
What that would do is it would reduce down your guys' duties on those committees.
And more public input,
Right. And it doesn't mean you guys couldn't attend any
right?
of those committee meetings, but it just, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
I
think,
think then we're killing the purpose of a committee meeting, because now we are going to have to explain again everything we just said in that
I mean,
meeting to
that's
the
kind of
rest
the
of the
point of
board.
having the commission, I mean, that's kind of the point of the committees is so you come up with your committee report and
Mhm.
you basically have to either go to the meeting yourself or have trust that the members there are doing the right things, and then in the committee report and take your information from there.
I didn't go to public safety this last time. I had other plans that evening, but I'm gonna trust whatever recommendation that committee is gonna bring to the board tonight regarding the security cameras. No different than I have attended public safety meetings
Yeah.
because I wanted to be there to listen firsthand. So, I mean, bottom line, it still has to go through board approval. Any recommendation still
Mhm.
comes to the board.
Mhm.
So, okay, so I am partially in agreement with Pat here, but not entirely. So what I think, in my mind, the way that I see this working out, if we can generate enough involvement that is productive, which is why I say I think we should stay with just a trial for a while, is to have the committees, I think a good structure would be to have like 6-person committees. Okay, so if, or up to 6-person committee, which in my mind would be, an ideal breakup would be three board members and 3 village residents. If I was the dictator and I could make it up, what I would do is, I would have, the president appoint 3 of the board members and then a 4th that is listed as the 4th. And if we can get 2 residents to become part of the board, then you still have a 6-member committee. If you can get 3, then that 4th person could, that 4th board member could drop off as no longer being part of that committee, as long as there's still a 6-person committee, which could reduce it, the number of board members on the committee, if there's enough public involvement. But if there wasn't enough public involvement, then you still need to have enough diversity of ideas and experience involved in the discussion to make it a productive discussion. That's my idea anyway. So it seems like, something to kind of blend us in. You understand what I'm saying?
So it's almost like you're saying it could start to happen with a couple of the committees.
It could. I mean, you could appoint 4, get 2 village residents that work out, and then when you get another village resident that comes in that's gonna work, you can drop one of the board members off and have a 6-person committee that's 50% board, 50% community members, and see how that works. And it's always something you could, if it doesn't work out, you could always just scrap it and go back to what we have done. And if you can only get 2 members, then you have 4 and 2. If you can only get 1, you have 4 and 1. If you can't get any, you still just have 4. I'm sure there are other ideas, but that, in my mind, that's the one that,
Oh, I like that idea, but I agree, I think we need to keep testing, because we only had the 2 people that were at one meeting. We haven't had any at Public Works yet till next week, or 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fine.
You're just looking for direction. is what you're
Well, I was
saying.
just seeing if we want to move forward yet, or if we want to continue. It's been 3 months since, or at least 3 months since we kind of decided we wanted to test it, so,
Well, I don't think we have enough meetings to really say we've tested it. That's the problem.
I agree, I just
You
wanted to
know.
get an update and see
Yeah,
what your thoughts are, and number of people on the committee, because we have an extra one that wants to join public facilities right now, and that would put 3 of the public on public facilities.
and I think 3 public is a good number,
Okay.
you know.
You try it if we find that it's too much, you know, like, okay, so it's hard to make a decision because this has to still go to board and now we've got half the opinion, you know. But really, you're supposed to be just bringing the committee discussion, the recommendation to the board, whether you agree with it or not, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, I say we keep testing and just see, and if we have more meetings, we'll know a little more and kind of carry on like that. What does everyone else feel? Is that a good idea?
And I
Just-
think keeping on, encouraging people to apply or whatever the procedure
Right.
is to get, you know, express interest in the committees. I'm sure there's people out there that might know Public Works or interest in Public Works or.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. We'll move to G, discussion and possible action on ATV trail extension.
There is an error, in the packet. I was talking on MM, and then I mentioned Grandview. It's obviously not Grandview, it's Cedar Street is the issue area, is one of them.
Crest.
Oh, yeah, why did I say Cedar? Jeez.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I'm confused now.
Yeah,
Where
sorry.
is that?
So Crest Street, so the first part is whether or not, I met with the ATV route people and they were asking about 2 areas. One was MM, going into Ellington, and the other one's TT going into, Hortonia from Nye Street. Basically, MM, Crest Street, after Mystic Drive here, it goes to 45 at that point. So right now, that's where we have our ATV ending. We can ask the county to do a speed study to potentially reduce it down to 35, all the way to the edge of the village limits on that side, and then potentially, then they would have a connecting route.
Does it have to be reduced? I thought that other communities had 45 and even 55, and they still allowed ATVs.
They do with a double, you would have to post double speed limits, and we would have to pay money for it, which the ATV trails people said they would pay for. I would just caution on having multiple different speeds on a road. I think that, in my opinion, that is a very dumb reason to have 2 different speeds on a road. I think it creates an unsafe area where you have someone going 35 or 40 and someone who's going 55. I think safety-wise is an issue.
And I also think that has something to do with the county ordinance, because the county has to have an ordinance. So the county ordinance is following the state statute of 35 miles an hour. So if the county doesn't change their ordinance, we can't go against the county.
So you're saying what exactly?
So the county ordinance is ATVs can't exceed the speed limit of 35 miles an hour.
Right.
In Outagamie County. Wapaka's got a different ordinance, Shawano's got a different ordinance stating that the ATVs can do the speed limit, okay? But our county ordinance says that they can't exceed 35 miles an hour. Now you have a 45 mile an hour speed zone, so what he's looking is to see if the county will reduce that speed zone so that then we can enact that they can do that speed of 35 miles an hour from, I don't know, from our village limits all the way to Stevensville.
So did the ATV club, when they met with you, did they say they were having trouble with anything like that? on any of their other routes, or,
Well, it's up to the county. I mean, they wanted to have a
Yeah.
route on M, and the county just said no. Period. So it does come down to whether the county's opinion on certain things here. So, I mean, granted, for the most part, I don't think it would be a problem if, other than the safety issue, if you try doing the 35 and a 45.
so you're saying
The
the
state
only
laws,
thing?
they're working on getting the state law to match what the speed limit is, because it's a ridiculous thing. And they even know it. So they're trying to push it. It's just, we don't know how long it'll take up the state to get that updated.
So this is kind of a Band-Aid, but may not be the safest Band-Aid for us.
Unless we do have a speed study done and they allow us to reduce the speed.
So
Then
then
it
it
would-
would be a matched speed for traditional vehicles and ATVs, UTVs.
Right.
Okay.
Then all we have to do is just ask permission from the county, kind of like Highway 15. Then we could just ask for the permission, they grant us the permission, and then we can move our signs out to our village limit then.
Right.
So you're saying you need a motion or a head nod to get a hold of the county and have this
Well,
study?
I would have to do a letter by the county, approved by the board for it. So yeah, you could do a motion, but I guess depending on what you wanna do for TT is the other thing. If you want, Dean suggested doing a speed study as well for TT when I talked to him about that.
What is involved in a speed study?
They basically track the speeds of cars that are going by. They lay down a strip and basically,
I think they also count driveways, they look at the
Yeah.
topography and.
Yeah, they look at frequency, because when you lower the speed limit, there's a greater likelihood of accidents because you create congestion. So if traffic is too close together, right, if you're at 45 and the traffic's too close together, if you drop it to 35, think about, you know, we dropped it to 45 out by All World Ford. Just think if we all of a sudden just decide, well, let's drop that to 30 miles an hour, you know how jam-packed that
I
road would be?
understand
It's just, it's not it creates a safety hazard.
I mean, my opinion with TT is it's gonna be a village road out to Industrial Park by the end of this year. And I think that, you know, depending on what they come up with, I mean, yeah, we can ask them to do it. I don't know if it's gonna cost anything or anything like that, but, I don't believe so. I think you would've mentioned that, but.
My understanding is that if they even do a speed study and the speed limit's 45 miles an hour, they could actually increase it to 55 miles an hour if they find that that's what needs to happen. So, could backfire that way too.
So,
The section of Nye that's 45 is from Industrial Park for maybe,
No, it's actually from Midway.
I'm sorry, Midway, but then it turns to 35 just after Industrial Park.
Midway.
And then it drops to 25 when you're headed east, which
So,
nobody goes anymore.
how far out on TT are you thinking? Just out to the village limits?
It would be to the Industrial Park Ave. We don't have control over anything over here.
So, I mean, it's just a short stretch right there.
Yeah. I would think that with enough of the speed issues we've had over there, that we've had the police actually there stopping people who are going 50 and a 25, that we would have enough ourselves to decide on whether or not to reduce at least down to 35 in that area, out to Industrial Park Ave.
So, I have no objection to lowering the speed out to Industrial Park to 35. I live right over, I drive it every
Right.
day, so I have no objection to that at all. I think it's ridiculous that we go 35 and 45 within a half a block.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's,
Well,
I
and
think
then
it
it
was,
drops to 25, but there's no warning when you're coming east, and it's supposed to be 25 all the way out to Industrial
yeah.
Park. 25 goes to 45, but it's,
You
might
always
as well.
wonder
there's a
why
little
they,
piece of
why they
35.
did that.
Pardon me?
there's a little piece of 35.
Yeah,
Not going west, I don't
Not
think.
going,
Mm-mm. It's 25 all the way.
They have to be
the
the
same
same
going
No,
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I drive it every
Yeah,
morning.
Yep,
it
I-
goes 25,
You should, you
35,
drive it
40,
too,
50.
your house is
I
right
drive that
there.
every morning
Yeah.
to work,
Yeah.
so.
I
So
think
there,
it,
Yeah.
it turns to 20
Not very
going
long,
west.
is it?
Yeah, it's
Not
just
very
really,
long.
that's why I said it's like
stand
half a
corrected.
block.
I'll look tomorrow.
very
It's,
brief.
it's
I-
ridiculous.
Yeah.
You
Well-
might as well just hit the gas, but you get up to 35, you're up to 45 for the next sign, I mean, it's.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I
It's
wish- I wish it
ridiculous.
could be 20.
So I have no objection at all to the TT, changing that to 35. What's on MM? What are we looking at for
It's about 100 feet. I would,
100 feet?
yeah, because, well,
It's from Mystic to the village limits,
Yeah,
where
which-
that white house on the north side
So-
of the road,
if you're looking up there, the
that's
red,
village limit.
the red X on the right-hand side,
Okay,
that is our village limits.
okay,
Where it turns to 45 is right like 50 feet to the right outside of Mystic Heights there on the left-hand side.
okay.
I don't know where the sign is. Oh, how many feet, total feet it is?
Either way, we can't make this
Yeah, where's
decision,
the-
this is
Right.
county,
Right, because
yeah.
it's county
Yeah.
We have to just have him write a letter and have
About
the county.
2,000 feet.
speed study.
2,000 feet. So, that one I'm not as familiar with, so
Right now,
the-
yeah,
that one go 25 right to 45 there, right?
35.
Does it go to 35 there?
Yeah, it's 35 around that whole area. On Crest.
Yep, and then
Okay.
it goes to 45.
Where does it switch to 45?
Right,
Correct.
like,
Around the corner.
right here.
35 from Highway M. So if you hit Highway M, it's 35, all the way past Mystic.
Actually, the sign is right here.
Yeah, you're so zoomed in on it.
Mystic Heights, where Dan lives.
I don't know where Dan lives, never been to his house.
Mystic Heights, so it's, I can show, this is a sign here
Okay.
that goes to 45. I'll zoom back out.
Okay.
So this is gonna be up by the Crestview area, but it's its own little
The
subdivision.
old junkyard's across the road.
Yep.
Yeah, you know where the junkyard is?
No.
We need to get you all more.
I know where you're going under the new road,
Past that.
That's where it starts.
are we,
No,
Oh,
so,
you're past that.
that's M.
that's
So-
M. MM is Crest Street.
So the new little jog that they put in,
Yep, is right here.
which is,
So the new little jog is
That's
right
double.
here. And then this is, in this area is where it turns to 45.
okay,
After this goes.
so, okay.
It would be from like a stretch from there to there.
We would be
That's still
asking
inside the
the
city limits.
county to do a speed
That's
study.
inside the
We can
city
do nothing.
limits,
yeah.
All that we can do is ask
That's
Nathan
where,
to do
that's,
it.
that's
Yeah.
the corner where Goober's house is, right?
No,
No?
no, that's around this way. Where, see the green up there on the top? There's the green furthest to the left,
Yeah.
okay? You gotta go
Make
around
a
the
motion
corner
to remove
back
one.
down toward you. Is his house back in there?
Both.
Go for it.
Get
Yeah.
this moving, Jake.
I'd say,
Get it moving.
go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right
Number
to
one.
Do you need a
left.
motion?
I would need a motion to request the county to do a speed study on
Yeah, make that motion.
I'll second
Highway
it.
MM.
All in favor?
Do we have a motion? We have a
Jack made
motion
the
and
motion,
a
I seconded
second?
it.
We're all good? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
No, he lost it when I dialed it.
Okay, discussion and possible action on purchase of web payment portal.
So this is something that will allow, it'll allow a little more flexibility with how we currently go through our, on the backside, accepting our web payments where we currently have them now. We have to bring them in through a different software because the software for our credit card processing and the software for our accounting software doesn't really communicate. This changes that, and it's the same company, but they just kind of finalized an agreement together, and this is a web portal now that they would use. It would allow you to create an account. You would have the ability to see prior bills, prior payments. You would have the ability to set up auto pay, and it's a really, I think it's a lot more for the customer side as a benefit than it is really too much for the village side, for our staff, but it allows customers a little more flexibility in their payments.
And what are we using the payment portal for?
This would start with just basically, potentially it would start with just the utility, for the water and sewer bills.
Okay.
The idea is we should be able to add in different features with different areas. We just gotta see how that would work technically through, basically compared to this same stuff we have now. It's just some of the stuff is it'll log that someone paid for it, but we need to make sure that there's something on another software that, like dog licenses per se. Currently we take them in-house, but online we can't because we need proof of rabies vaccinations, and then we needed to communicate with a different software. So most of the help is for the utility software, but it would allow you to have an account then with that's tied to that software, and then you would be able to do payments to other things in the future the more we start adding into it. We just gotta work it out how we're gonna process the payments on the back end.
Okay.
I work with one of these, and the interface is super important because it takes away that labor and it eliminates error,
Yeah.
So
human error.
the first column is a dollar amount, right? On here, the payment. This is a $50 payment, $70 payment.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a straight 2.2% all the way across?
No, so currently it's a 2.2%. This would be a 2.75%, which
Okay,
gets
so what's the
attached to the, for the payer.
And does it support less than a $50 payment?
Yes, less than $100 payment, there's a 30 cents attachment.
Okay. Okay.
So do you need a motion for this?
Not necessarily, it's within my financial ability
Okay.
that it was budgeted for, so.
All right.
When would this go live?
They said it would take about 4 months,
Okay.
so it would be a while, but
Okay. I've had, it's again, undocumented. I've had people ask me, when I went around to get signatures, I've had people say, hey, could you guys find a way to pay my water bill online? And I've also had them say, can you pay it every month instead of 3 months, so it's not so big? So, yeah, I've had people tell me this is what they would like to see done. So, yeah, definitely in favor of that.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. I, discussion on monthly payments and automated monthly billings for water and sewer.
so
Whoops. Yeah, that's a,
this is basically, there's two things, is if we go to, one is basically if you guys would want us to investigate more on the monthly payments because of the fact that it's probably gonna take us having to do something with the PSC to get approval, because right now we're approved on quarterly payments. So we'd have to look at that. The only way we could really go to a monthly payment that wouldn't completely overwhelm our staff would be to do automated monthly billings, which basically, they work with our software, we export a file to them, it gets taken, once the file gets taken, they create the bills, they send a PDF back to our staff reviews the PDF, and then once they say go, they print them, send them to the residents. So it's not done in-house like it is now, where we print it out on the printer, and then we rip out the slips, and then we go take it to the mail and get bulk mailing that way. Estimated cost for that was about $10,000 in total for the automated billing, for monthly billings.
10,000 a year, 10,000
Annually.
annually, okay.
When it came down to it, it was actually think it was actually cheaper for us to, it was like a small amount cheaper, but, compared to how much time is actually spent currently doing our quarterly billings. If she switched that process to a monthly billing process, it would cost a little more for us to do them in-house than to outsource them.
Does it have to be a paper copy that goes out? I mean, I would rather just get an email bill.
So that's another thing, the online portal allows you to do that
Yeah.
too, to allow you to sign up for an email. I actually have a video of the online utility portal if someone wants to see it. I just figured this wouldn't be the place to play it. It's about 8 minutes.
I mean, that's free, and not free, I mean,
Right.
obviously pay for a service, but I mean, if I got an email and then people see the email, they click a link,
You
they
can
can
opt
pay
out of the
online,
paper
you're
bill.
done, yeah,
Through that portal, so.
that would rock.
That would be something we could do, and that would work with this, with this company too, is ADT Mailcom, but I think we have more background that we need to do on getting, exact numbers, because the last time we did it was about 6 months ago, so I wanna get updated numbers from ADT Mailcom, and then updated, information from the PSC on the process that we would have to go through to change it to a monthly billing process.
And didn't you say something about leaks could get caught faster if there's a leak or?
Well, yeah, because you should be able to, the issue is right now what happens is, our billing person ends up finding these after the 3rd month, once they print bills, because then you see, she basically kind of has done it so long, she kind of knows like, this person's is way higher than they normally are. And she usually pulls those out before being sent, and then calls the resident, and says, looks at their account and sees how the usage is, and then asks them if they could check a few things, because they might have a leak unless there's a reason for it. So she does that now, but the issue is when you bring it down to a monthly, then you know sooner rather than waiting to the 3rd month, because it's quarterly. So sometimes they're $1,000 and it's been leaking since the 1st month of the billing cycle, so then it's not found until the time we go through, so.
To me, monthly just is less money in your receivables, you're just getting that money quicker, too, you know?
I think it's better for the resident and myself. I like having monthly billings, that's how Clean Bills is, because, it's just easier to budget for a monthly than, quarterly, and just seeing it, I don't know, it's simpler for me,
So currently we do all of the billing in-house, right?
yes.
Mhm.
Okay, and the $10,000 annual would be less than what we're paying for our current billing?
If we switch to monthly and have that person doing the billing themselves. Yes.
Okay.
It does cost a little more, if she's doing the quarterly billings, and we have them do the quarterly billings.
Okay,
But right now, it costs, their estimation, I think in here, it said 70 cents
Mhm. Good bill.
per bill, which I need to verify again, because that's we almost pay that just for our postage for the most part. Actually, no, I think our postage, what's our post?
60.
60 for, is that for the bulk mailings?
Oh, I don't know.
It's a little less for the bulk mailings, but they get a better deal on it through this company gets a better deal than we do.
okay.
What do you need from us?
Is that the only option that they, so what I'm thinking is, like, there's a program with Wisconsin Electric and the utilities, where they'll estimate what your stuff is, and then you pay the same amount all throughout the year, but then they give you a bill at the end as an adjustment, that so somebody actually goes in and figures it out, so they look at what your normal bill is, and then you pay, so then you end up paying the exact same amount every single month. You wouldn't have to necessarily even deal with a billing company. You could just say, here's your bill every month, and then have someone in-house look at it to make sure you catch the leaks. Somebody is getting billed every month, and now they're gonna owe like $600 already, and there's a leak, but just a thought.
I have no idea. That would be something we'd have to check in with the PSC on.
Yeah, well, I mean, because the heat bills go way up in the winter here and stuff
Right.
like that, so Wisconsin Energy's did a program like that years ago where you could apply to become part of it. So instead of your heat being $100 a month in the summer and $300 a month in the winter, it was $210 all throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, they would do an adjustment if you owed or you had money or you had overpayment.
Yeah,
Then you would pay less in your last bill.
it's called budget billing, and they average you out. They say, you're pretty consistent, this is what you do, so yeah, you pay the same amount every single month. If there's an overage, they just give you a credit, you know.
Just an option, I mean.
Or
it's
if
on
you
this,
owe extra, you pay it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't
They
know, I'd
adjust
have
throughout
to,
the year too.
Yeah, they adjust it every 6
So many
months, I
months,
believe,
yeah.
because I'm on that.
What do you need from us, Nathan, to go move forward, at least to do, like you said, you need to do some double checking?
yeah, I'm gonna do some updating and stuff, so if you guys are good with us moving forward on looking into this more, I'm fine with, that. So I don't need a motion or anything, it's just, I didn't wanna spend the time trying to figure out the issue is that there's no real easy answer from the PSC, and most of their on-call people are for, customers rather than municipalities to contact them, so.
So with the Public Service Commission, I'm guessing is that what okay, so if you ask them if we could go to monthly billing and we decide not to do it, it's not like we have to ask them to go back to quarterly. Is it flexible, or you don't know
I
that?
think my guess is we would have to do some type of like resolution to pass to them, and then they would have to approve it.
Okay.
But I don't know the process, don't quote me on anything,
No.
but it would just be a hypothetical conversation with them at first.
You just didn't want to spend the time and effort to do it if we were all like, nah,
Yeah,
we don't want to do monthly. Okay. But I think our residents would love it.
Yeah,
I do too.
I think monthly
It'd be
billing
like-
is the
Yeah.
definitely the
Yeah.
way to go. It's just a matter of what's gonna be the most cost-effective process.
okay.
All right, so that's a go. So we'll go to J, discussion and possible action on 2023 street maintenance, crack filling bid results.
So we had a RFP out earlier this year for crack filling on some of our city streets that were definitely in need of it. We got 3 bids in, and the lowest was Farner Asphalt at $21,738.37, and I think they were the ones that did the crack filling for the village last year too and did a good job.
Are there any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion to, you're suggesting number 3.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 street maintenance crack filling bid to Farner Asphalt Sealers in the amount of $21,738.37.
Second.
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. K, discussion and possible action on 2023 sewer televising quotes.
So one of the pages from the first quote that we got from Speedy Clean didn't make it into the packet, so I printed one off for everyone. But the quotes that we got, Speedy Clean came in at $6,849, and Northern Pipe came in at $7,931. So our recommendation would be to use Speedy Clean, which again, I think is who we used to do televising last year on Main Street.
Other questions for Aaron? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 sewer televising quotes to Speedy Clean in the amount of $4,644.
Nope.
No.
No,
6,000.
okay, sorry,
49.
Second page.
$6,849. I'm sorry, and you did say that, Aaron, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Second.
It's a little confusing with the two
Aye.
different ones.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. L, discussion and possible action on resolution R-06-23 outdoor recreation grant applications.
We need this resolution passed in order to have them submit the documentation for our application for the Alonzo Park grant.
Just one of the grant requirements.
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve R-3-23 resolution for outdoor recreation grant applications.
Is it R-3 or R-6?
R-6.
R-6-23, sorry.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion and possible action on purchase of a security camera system.
Okay, so we discussed this in public safety. Number of the highlights for the things that we discussed with, on the CSQ quote, public safety recommends that we go with the CSQ quote. We did save, was it $3,000 by reducing the cameras from 8, the indoor cameras from 8 down to 5 megapixels? Is that all of them or just some of them?
Just some of them.
Some of them like in the hallway and things like that.
Yeah, I think it was 12 and 5.
Okay,
12
so
down to-
we had a $3,000 savings. Some of the other things that we talked about with this were, the record keeping of the recording system, and that it was able to distinguish who and when accesses the system. I also presented, some rough examples to use as outlines for policies and procedures for who, what, and what we should be using this for.
Is that in the packet?
No.
No,
So we're not approving that
No.
tonight?
No.
We're just looking
No.
at the purchase, but
that
that'll be
was
in
for
the future?
continued future discussion.
So I did find one camera, it's not one like that one, it's the smaller one. I found one in a drawer, so I had, Rob take that because this camera was not working over here to point out the door. He ended up getting that one to work, and then he went and took it to over by the library one, took that one over to the library one, was able to get that working. So we got a couple cameras working, but still, parking lot's still not working. This one's hit and miss, and the library goes in and out all day long. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
So then we would, if there aren't any questions, we would need a motion to accept CSQ security.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for the security cameras, the village security cameras to CSQ in the amount of $23,995.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. And any other miscellaneous topics for future discussions? There are none. We'll move to 11, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer.
My report was in the packet, and I just want to commend my staff regarding the audit. They were here on Monday and Tuesday. They did a great job,
Wonderful.
to say the least. Dan and Lauren, Aaron did his part. Yeah, we did a good job.
Thank you all. Any other questions for Jane? Okay, we'll go to B, Director of Public Works.
My report is in the packet, and I just wanted to mention again that next week, they're planning on starting the re-roofing of this building. So there'll be some construction people here for probably about a week.
Any questions for Aaron?
How's our snow removal budget?
Haven't seen the latest one from Allegheny County yet, but last month's was not too bad. I'd expect it to be more for May or March.
No, not
That's
me.
okay.
Not May, hopefully not May.
Could be though. All right, then we'll move to C, Police Chief Chris.
My report is in the packet. A lot of things done. One of the major things that I've been working on is the purging of the evidence room. So I have Officer Hayden, who has been helping me a whole lot. We took inventory because when we went to Spillman back in 2018, they actually have an evidence portion in that software to be able to have the officers log in the evidence right from their desk instead of logging it in. They can even log it in their squad cars. So it's a really cool system that we have. Allegheny County has switched to that, so I felt comfortable that this software, this evidence software is not gonna go away. Seymour uses it, there's quite a few agencies that use it. So we switched over to that, with the officers starting to log things in 2022, in the middle of 2022. So we have an old system, so we've been going through the evidence room, we took a log of everything that's in the evidence room, and then now we have Tyler, who is actually going through each case by case to determine whether or not the case has been settled, whether it still needs to be held open by the DA, we have to get the DA's permission to discard the evidence, so it's a huge process, but we're looking at doing a lot of purging. We've already gotten rid of garbage cans full of drugs and drug paraphernalia and everything, so.
Good.
Any good or bad news on body camera?
What I think I determined, I had another meeting with her, on Wednesday, we switched to Wednesday. So, the price of the body camera contract is coming to an end, at the end of this year, November 30th, I do believe. So, it was a total of $55,000, which is split up for 5 years, which is $10,000. Right now, I'm currently paying $6,000, a little over $6,000 for both the body camera and the taser contract, okay? So it's an additional $4,000 a month for body cameras and tasers.
$4,000 a month?
A year.
Or, yeah, $4,000 a year, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I asked her, is there anything that you guys can do? Because, I mean, we can't be the only jurisdiction that's gonna have a hard time coming up with an additional $4,000 every year to, to come out of our budgets. And so she said that she had been talking with her supervisors and the people there. The only thing that we can come up with is, normally with our taser contract, it's kind of nice because we always have like new equipment. So we get the equipment in November, 2.5 years into the contract, they send us all brand new equipment, and then we send our old equipment to them. And then at year 5, they do the same thing. So body cameras are updating every year, every 2 years. Tasers, I mean, we have the X26s, which now they're coming out with a Taser 7. Taser 7s are a lot better than the ones that we're currently using, but I guess I need to make the decision, and that would be a board decision, is whether or not, because it's gonna cost more money per year, it's gonna be another $4,000. So currently with the tasers and the body cameras, they have separate billing, they're both under $5,000. But now you're gonna have bills that are $6,000 and $4,000. So I don't know what to do. We can keep our old tasers. However, they don't recommend that we keep our old tasers because there's new out there. So it's something to think about. I have till November to kind of figure out what I want to do and what route I want to go.
Any other questions for Chris?
80% increase is a pretty big pill to swallow.
Okay, then we will go to library director, Ally.
My report was in the packet. We started an e-newsletter that goes out on the first of every month that has book highlights, events, important information, closures, stuff like that. So we have that going, and we're pretty excited about that because that is a brand new venture for us. So, yeah, sign up.
Any questions for Ally? Okay, we'll move to E, attorney, Ashley.
I don't have anything to share.
Okay. F, administrator.
I don't have that much to share. The excavating company is now out of the downtown plaza, I guess you could call it, where the DOT was stationed. So they have our asphalt company to finish the bypass is now renting out of it, so, that's about it. It looks like they're gonna probably start doing meetings soon. I know there is a Highway 15 meeting coming up. Other than that, just looking at background on, trying to get implementation with Aaron on GIS as well, and looking at costs on that. And then Tony Cemetery actually turned in their submittal to us, so that will probably be in my next weekly update for you guys, to put that in there. So, other than that, we had trainings that one of the trainings we missed, the HR communities, we got the recording for, so staff's gonna check that out. And then actually coming up next week on the 22nd, we have staff training for playing nice in the sandbox is what it's called for general staff. And then the department heads have one that's based on, I think it's like employee retention and coaching type stuff, so.
Any questions for Nathan?
Do you have any information on when O'Reilly's gonna open up?
25th.
From what I've been told, they've been adding in their supplies. I wouldn't expect it to be more than a month from now, but they haven't really told me anything.
Okay.
According to the web, the 25th.
The 25th
Mm-hmm.
of this month?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, they posted open positions, and then when you're doing your application, it has on there the 25th.
And then the raise order wasn't contested, so
Oh, that's good.
for the 424 Barrett Street.
Okay.
Wasn't contested meaning, and I just need to understand it, so it's we're
They
gonna
have
be
60
doing it,
more
or
days.
they're
to-
doing it,
They have 60 more days to remove it before we have to
step in,
remove it ourselves.
okay.
And then bill them, or we just,
We assign it to their taxes.
okay.
My understanding of it.
Okay, we'll move to G, building permit report. There is none. 12, communications and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News. Pat?
We met last week. I can't remember the day. I think it was Wednesday. The harvester is waiting for parts, like everybody is. It's the same old story even from the original place, but, and Nathan, you were there, so correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but, felt pretty comfortable that we had a discussion about if they put on some old parts, is it still gonna be okay? And I think Dan was involved in that, and thought, we could piecemeal stuff. We also discussed if we're really backed up, do we need to look at renting again? But hopefully it's all gonna work out, that we'll have a harvester working by June. Talked about the trailer, because we originally budgeted for a new trailer back 2 years ago. And so we approved a new trailer. The one that they hauled the old one up on is pretty much wrecked. So it didn't really fit the harvester to start with. So we approved a new trailer. We also approved fish stocking, perch and largemouth bass. That's going to be done by Lake and Pond Solutions around the same time they do the study of the lake. Also have a fireproof safe now, so we're able to keep documents in the facility, in the building, that they'll be all in one place. Trim down the amount of papers. And I believe that was purchased used, so it wasn't a huge expense. Did I miss anything?
Okay, we'll move to Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News.
No,
Nothing?
nothing.
Jack? Nothing? C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, Peter is out. E, Senior Activities Committee, Pat?
Our next meeting is March 30th at noon. On March 6th, Chris came to our potluck. I think she noted that in her report too, and did a presentation on scams, very informative, and we had probably 6 different handouts, I think, that we're gonna be sharing as we see new people come. And then this coming Monday, we're partnering with the library for dessert and a movie at 1 o'clock.
Okay, we'll go to 13, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Yes?
I'm at least from Troop 77 in Greenville. I'm here to do my citizenship in the community message.
I'm Evan Leash, his brother, and I'm in Troop 77 doing the citizenship in the community message.
You should tell
Thanks
your
for
fellow
being here.
scouts to pick a meeting with a shorter agenda. Both my kids are in scouts, so yeah.
We were here 2 weeks ago, and that was a much shorter meeting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming.
Mhm.
14, motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Second?
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Okay, we go to 15, 5 minutes recess to clear the meeting room. Okay, 16. We need a motion to go back into open session.
I'll make a motion to go back into open session.
Second.
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Okay, 17, any action on matters discussed in closed session? There's none. We'll go to 18, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are now adjourned.